Hi, welcome back to Movie Review Mom. I'm so glad you're here. My goal is to give you the inside scoop on filmmaking quality and content so that you can make the best decision for yourself and your family as to whether or not you want to spend time, money, and sometimes both watching a particular movie. So, the particular movie I'm going to review today is called One Shot. This hardcore action flick is now available on Amazon Prime and on iTunes. And I've got a great tip for you. If you want to have a free 30-day free trial on Amazon Prime where you can watch unlimited movies, click down below. I've got a link that will get you that free trial. And there's no obligation. You could just try it out and see if that's something that you'd like. And of course, Christmas is right around the corner, and Hanukkah and Kwanzaa and all of those other holidays, not to mention Thanksgiving, if you're here in the United States. So if you've got some gift buying that you've got to do, you can also get free shipping when you join with Prime, Amazon Prime. So anyway, check it out. All right, so let me tell you about this film. It's rated R. It's an hour and 36 minutes, and I'm going to give you an overview in a nutshell. I'll point out things I liked, didn't like, themes worth talking about, tips for parents, and recommendations for other movies that are sort of similar that I think you might also like. Let's dive in. The story is about a squad of Navy SEALs on a covert mission to transport a prisoner off of a CIA Black Site Island prison. However, they're trapped when insurgents attack while trying to rescue the same prisoner. The film is directed and written by James Nunn, based on the story by Jamie Russell. So first, let's start off with the things that I really liked about it. I really like one-shot camera work and films that are supposedly filmed in real time. I hadn't seen a trailer for this movie before I watched it, so I didn't realize that's what the director was going to do, despite the movie's title. I know. I just assumed the movie was going to be about, shooting bad guys, or maybe they've got one last shot to solve the problem or the crime or the whatever the problem was, the challenge. In the case of this movie, it's actually both. So very clever. And you've got to be impressed with the technical ability and direction to pull off a one-shot film. I'll tell you here in just a few minutes about one incredible one-shot film that I thought was really, really great. Anyway, Scott Adkins stars in the movie and actually has the martial artist skills to make him a believably tough Navy SEAL. He does a really good job, and it doesn't look like he's phoning it in. He gets hit pretty hard, and he works pretty hard, I think, in this movie. Fun fact, the movie was shot entirely at Bentwaters Park in Suffolk, England. It was a former Royal Air Force station about 80 miles outside of London. For the majority of the movie, you feel kind of like you're watching a video game. So if that's what you're looking for, I think you'll be very happy about that. Now, of course, if you don't like video games, you don't play them, you're not interested, maybe shy away from this film. But you do feel like you're right there following behind all of these people. Sometimes you're following behind the good guys, and sometimes you're following behind the bad guys, but you are right there. It's like you've got a front seat right in front of that action. So I thought it was really well done. And just even to have things timed, a lot of things felt very natural. There was only one moment where you're outside and then the camera starts to take you inside. And then there's a doorway where there's some other people. And one of the people actually looks kind of at the camera, almost to say, okay, here comes our scene. Other than that, it just felt like everything really did flow. And I was really impressed by that. So there are lots of talking scenes as well, mixed up with all of the action. And they're there to establish the story and the characters. And at the beginning, it lasts about 18 minutes, just talking, establishing characters, that kind of stuff. And then the high octane action kicks in full gear. The adrenaline filled scenes offer lots of action, maybe not things we haven't seen before, but it does slow it down enough to offer some personal touches and glimpse into people's personalities. And I actually really appreciated that, because I felt like if it was just going to be killing people nonstop for the entire film. That's just exhausting and numbing, and you almost lose interest in that. But if you mix it up like they do in this film, you're like, okay, a little bit of respite. And now back to the crazy storm and the chaos, right? So I thought that they handled that really well. Now, that being said, there were some things I didn't like. First of all, shaky cam. I hate shaky cam. And when all of the action started and I realized I was following the camera around and it was moving sometimes very quickly and sporadically, I was like, oh no, this is going to be a really dizzying film. Thankfully, it slowed down where I could feel like I was walking behind people, sometimes jogging, but it wasn't like, oh, bouncing me all over the place. So it definitely got better. And I appreciated that. Sometimes it's hard to understand what people are saying on the helicopter in those scenes when they're talking through their headphones at the very beginning of the movie. Luckily, that doesn't last that long. And I could still understand. I was just kind of really leaning forward. But after that, you can pretty much understand what everybody's saying. There are some accents and there is some language spoken without subtitles, but you didn't really need to know exactly what was being said to understand what was being said, kind of, you know what I mean? Now, there are some little details about the storyline and the plot that simply don't make any sense. For example, and this has been the biggest complaint I've heard from viewers, and that is there is some basic math that doesn't work when it comes to the numbers of terrorists that keep coming out of a certain truck that would never fit them all in real life. In other words, you see kind of, a regular truck pulling up, and then all of a sudden there are hundreds of terrorists all over for the rest of the movie. And you're like, all right, where did they all come from? They didn't all fit in that truck. So again, that's been a very common complaint. However, there's another example that there's this guy and he puts on these specific pair of pants. He's kind of changing his clothes to disguise himself. And he puts his pants on and then he immediately runs away. And you're like, wait, what about those shoes? You didn't put the shoes on. And then you never actually see the camera pan down to his feet to see if there are shoes or not. But I'm like, he definitely would have needed shoes on. Little dumb things like that, but it's the little details that I think are important that I, as a viewer, absolutely appreciate. And then there's the thing where some people die and you're like, oh, they died. And then magically, now they're breathing and looking around again. And you're like, wait, what? I thought they were dead. They should be dead. So I'm like, come on. And then the movie ends rather abruptly. It's an appropriate ending, but it was like, oh, okay, I guess we're done. So it just kind of caught me off guard, I guess. I mean, the basic story was over, but I kind of thought there was going to be, 2 months later, kind of a summary, at the end of the movie or whatever, but that didn't happen. Let me give you some tips for parents. First of all, this is not an appropriate movie for kids, not for family viewing. There's a lot of profanity, including F-bombs and some crude language, super high body count. I mean, people are dying constantly. You see lots of dead bodies laying around. There's point blank, brutal murder in various ways with complete disregard for human life. Tons of explosions and destruction, lots of blood, illustration of torture. And in other words, stuff that you really don't want your young kids watching. So this is an adult movie and filled with lots of testosterone. There are some themes, though, that are illustrated and oftentimes very well in the movie. Obviously, military and having some skill and, kind of watching how special ops might work, that kind of thing. Obedience, for example, do you follow the rules or do you not? Rules are made by people who aren't here, and maybe they would make a different exception if they saw what was happening, that kind of thing. And those kinds of conversations occur, which is interesting. And then truth. Who's telling the truth? The good guys, the bad guys, somewhere in between. And then, of course, protecting the homeland in various ways. Oh, yeah. And I just thought of another one, revenge. So there you go. Now, I always write down funny lines and interesting lines. However, in this movie, it is pure drama and action. So I couldn't find any funny lines, but you can see some of the interesting lines that I wrote down at moviereviewmom.com on my website. I'll share a couple of them with you right now. One of them is spoken by Scott Adkins, who plays this guy. And he says, when people find out you're a team guy, the first question they ask is, how many people you've killed? Nobody ever asks how many people you've saved. And I thought that that was really profound. And then at another point, the woman, Zoe Anderson, played by Ashley Greene, she says, sometimes it's harder to save a life than to take one. And so I don't want to give you any spoilers about what's going on there. But anyway, lots of action, lots of personalities, high body count, as I mentioned, high octane, lots of adrenaline. And there's plenty of tension as you're really literally following these people around between life and death. So I thought that that was really good. Overall, the movie review mom grade I'm giving this is a B-. So let me give you recommendations for a couple of other films that I think you might also like if you enjoy this one. The first one is called Hardcore Henry, and it really does feel like a video game, so much so that, you know, if you were playing a video game, you see the hands and the weapons. You don't really see the person, right? And it kind of carries throughout the entire film. There's some humor in that movie, but lots of action, some violence, destruction, that kind of stuff. Really not for little kids, young kids. And then I mentioned that one take film that I thought was so great, and it's fairly recent. It's called 1917. And technically, there are some cuts. I know for sure one, maybe a few more, but the way they filmed it, you don't see it. I had to be told that there were some cuts and edits out because it looks like it flows so well. It's such a powerful film. And again, you're following along with these people, watching them experience World War I. Really, really great movie. Well done. It'll just, it'll touch your heart and exhaust you as you watch what all of these guys go through to in the name of protecting and defending truth and freedom and all of that kind of stuff. Okay, that's it for my movie review. Remember that coupon down below, and also click on down below and you'll get links to the movies that I just talked about, as well as links to some of my other stuff, like my online courses, my books, my daily podcasts, and all that kind of stuff. Thank you so much for spending time with me, and I will catch you in the next one. Bye for now.